Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 10, Episode 3. He's Dave Bryan, I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Good to be back with you, Steelers Nation, as we are rolling through camp. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Happy, Monday night tonight. We're recording this on a Monday night to go up Tuesday morning because Alex will be headed back out to camp on Tuesday. We have 6 practices left now, and you made it through the 2 tough stretches, 4 practices and then a string of 5. How you feeling, Alex?
Hanging in there. I can't complain. I'm sure the players feel much worse than I do. So who am I to complain about just sitting and watching instead of actually participating in practice? 9 of them in 10 days. Harder stretch. Guys got through it and come out the other side.
And overall, the weather's been cooperating so far. A little bit of rain out the Friday Night Lights practice, I guess. But overall, I guess the team's been lucky.
Yeah, can't complain besides that Friday Night Light practice, which really was before practice, even before the players got there. So the weather's been fantastic, hot and humid and muggy, but that's typical for August, and that's conditions these guys will have to play, and that's how you evaluate as a coach. So overall, really can't complain about anything regarding camp so far.
All right, I guess we should no special edition of the podcast Sunday night because you got home so late, and so you don't have to recap 2 nights worth of practices tomorrow night on the special edition of the podcast. Why don't we kind of get to reviewing what happened at the Family Fest practice Sunday night at Heinz Field. I guess we'll start first and foremost and talking about the guys that got banged up during that session. Rookie wide receiver Diontae Johnson left early, evidently, with a groin injury of some sort. He had just returned to action Sunday night after missing the team's Saturday practice with a hip injury. So hopefully there's nothing too serious there. The team is, of course, off on Monday, and we'll resume practice on Tuesday, so we'll keep our fingers crossed that he'll be able to go there. Center Marquise Pouncey had to leave early. Numerous Twitter reports indicate that maybe he kind of had a slight back strain. Mike Tomlin didn't sound like he was too terribly worried about that. He said he's being evaluated with a minor injury of some kind, and he doesn't have specifics there. J.C. Hassan, how do you pronounce his last name? Hassenauer?
I say Hassenauer. Tomato. I think it's Hassenauer.
He left with a knee injury, and Artie Burns didn't finish with his groin. That sounds strange to say that, but groin injuries on both Diontae Johnson and Artie Burns. So we'll have to see what happens there. The big news, I think, ahead of the practice, and kind of caught me by surprise, but and probably you too. But T.J. Watt was activated off of the active PUP list, so he's back working again. He just really went through, I guess, more of the drill side of it, and they're going to bring him along slow at this point. But the good news is he's back working, and we'll see how quickly they integrate him back into the team aspect of practice. But good news there. And you had passed along the news that last night that inside linebacker Vince Williams hamstring, outside linebacker Anthony Chickalo hamstring, Sean Davis with that finger, tight end Christian Scotland Williamson with a groin. It appears guard David DeCastro appeared to have a day off, a veteran day off, and cornerback Derek Thomas, I guess you said, wasn't working, undisclosed injury there. All those people failed to practice Sunday night. Additionally, I think you reported that Dante Moncrief with a finger, quarterback Ben Roethlisberger, outside linebacker T.J. Watt, of course, all went through the individual drills Sunday night, but sat out the team portions of practice. Did I miss anything?
Nope, you got it all. Moncrief's still catching with one hand and bringing him along slowly, but I think you just want to get him work and put in pads and a little bit of conditioning, not let him just stand there and sit. Ben's for 3 days. It hasn't been in team. He looked okay in individual. He was doing rollouts. I mean, there's nothing visibly wrong with him, but yeah, a little strange. He hasn't worked 3 straight days in team. Might just be the management situation or something like that. Mark Barron back in pads, so that was good because he's kind of been weird this camp. But yeah, those are the list, and I think all the injuries as Tomlin has implied and outright said are all pretty minor.
Yeah, we hope so. And there were no roster moves made on Monday. That's usually a good sign. We'll see if there's one made before practice on Tuesday. But overall, I mean, you look at this. Some people will probably say, "Boy, this injury list is growing." Yeah, it is. But I mean, it's kind of to be expected this time of year. And as far as we can tell right now, there's nothing really of significance. Sean Davis with that finger. Who knows what he had to have done there? Maybe he had to have a minor procedure. I don't know, but hopefully he'll be back to work soon.
Yeah, I think they just want to be super cautious. With him being a safety, you can easy to get your finger jammed, making a tackle, trying to bat down a pass. But yeah, I think everything's minor across the board. Again, any one-man roster, guys are going to get dinged up. Nothing serious, no super injuries to many starters. I think this team's in a good place health-wise.
All right, well let's go through a little bit of what you saw at Family Fest. Probably a little bit different setup, but offensive line.
Yeah, a little different setup. Basically the same idea, though. Nothing really different in terms of how they conduct practice, just some different elements that they incorporate. Derwin Gray's been a little quiet ever since leaving with Heat a couple days ago. I thought he had a decent start to camp. Really haven't noticed him a whole lot since. Thought Gerald Hawkins did have a better day, and I do want to be able to praise him because we've been pretty critical of him. And I said, is it it's health? Is it a rust? Is it a combination? We're not sure. But if he can have a couple more good days of practice, it may indicate that was some of the rust he was knocking off early in camp. And I mentioned this before, being a year away from football, tearing that quad in the, spring of 2018. So that's predictably, some rust to shake off. But I thought Hawkins did have a better day.
And I think Craig Wolfley said as much too, and I think Matthew Marksey wrote that up in the last 24 or 48 hours as well too, that, there probably is a lot of rust there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, a guy that's been away from that long, but it's hard to tell. And I still don't call it a great day, and he's still got to be a whole lot better to make this team. There's a lot of competition with Banner and Fred Johnson. As I said before, I think that Banner and Fred Johnson, if you're going to keep 9, are 8-9 right now.
All right. What was with DeCastro out? What was the lines looking like?
Same thing. First team, just Finney moved to right guard. They kept Fowler at right tackle. I don't know if I have my second team posted. If I can try to find it, I can't even look it up right now. I don't know where it is in my notes, but I don't think anything was radically different. I think it's basically been more of the same.
All right, quarterbacks. Ben obviously not doing too terribly much right now. They're getting Rudolph and Joshua Dobbs and Devlin Hodges, of course, ready. What did you see Sunday night?
Thought Dobbs is better. I'm just going through some of my stats. I do my stats recap on every off day, and just the numbers I think help paint that story. And I have each completion written down, and it kind of helps paint that picture too of Dobbs. And I said this before, even throughout camp, even when Dobbs was struggling, having that terrible start, that he's a guy that's going to drive the football downfield more than Mason Rudolph. And I think he'll take some more educated and rightful risks and try to fit it downfield. And so I think Dobbs has definitely done a better job of that. Rudolph is kind of, after a better start, starting to fade a little bit. Dobbs, after a really quiet start, starting to pick things up again. As I said before, it's a wide open battle. That's why I didn't want to draw any conclusions on Dobbs at the get-go, because I knew those guys are going to bounce back. And the numbers I'll post tomorrow, at least for Dobbs, will reflect how much better he's had the last 5 practices compared to the first 4.
All right, first preseason game, you would expect probably Dobbs to start, and what do you think they're going to do there? Half for Dobbs and almost the second half for Rudolph, and then bring Devlin Hodges in for a series or so at the end?
That's how I do it. I'm pretty confident Dobbs is going to start, get the first half, Rudolph will get the second half. If it's not a situational football, I'll take Rudolph out for that last drive, but if it is 2-minute, some sort of situation where I want to see Rudolph and I haven't seen him in already, then I'm probably going to have Rudolph finish out the half and say sorry to Devlin Hodges.
Okay, running backs.
Nothing too crazy. Pretty quiet day. I thought Ralph Webb continues to run hard, run well. Benny Snell, I thought, did well, being able to make something out of nothing. I think he was 1 of 2 along the goal line. Offense won the goal line session 4-3. So it's good to see just that environment. It's always kind of a big highlight of camp, right up there with, backs on backers. But really more of the same. James Conner, again, Tomlin's talked about how they're really limiting his work. The numbers show it. Conner throughout camp, through the first line practices, he's been in every practice, only has 15 carries. Compare that to someone like Benny Snell with 35, Jalen Samuels with 23, Ralph Webb with 19. So they're really just making sure that Conner's rested, ready to go, and doesn't take too many hits before week 1.
I think you tweeted out last night that Snell had a heads-up play jumping on a loose football or something.
Yeah, usually I don't get too much information from bad quarterback center exchanges, but it was Pouncey to Rudolph that was bobbled, and I just love Snell racing in. I think everyone on the defense was kind of slow to react to it. Devin Bush kind of saw it, and Snell, it's so funny. Snell and Bush again, just showing up and just going for it, and Snell picked it up, didn't even just fall on, he scooted up and started to run. So, I know that doesn't sound like much, but I think it's a plus in Snell's column for being heads up, being aware of the football, and even this being practice and not being a true turnover, going after a ball that's on the ground. That's kind of ball awareness that you want to look for in a rookie, and he showed on that play.
All right, wide receivers.
Yeah, I was a little bummed Deontay Johnson couldn't finish, but I thought he had a nice practice. I thought Tevin Jones, like I said a couple days ago, I thought Jones is stringing together some better practices. Is that going to be enough? Probably not. Even for practice squad, it's going to probably be a tough climb at this point, but I thought him showing his speed, showing some body control has been impressive. I think that's about it on that. Deontay Spencer had a bad drop, and I kind of compare his hands to Deontay Johnson, where he doesn't have bad hands, but he's so anxious to get upfield and show that open field ability that he so obviously has, that he'll lose focus on the football and take his eyes off the ball, not see it, and drop some passes. So I think he's got really two identical drops over the middle, open on these deep dig routes, so he ends up getting hit in the chest and popping back out. So you just want to make sure you're focusing on the details if you're Deontay Spencer to finish that play and be able to make that run after catch opportunity.
I think Nick had a video of that, and I slowed that thing down. Looked like maybe Spencer heard some footsteps coming there.
Okay, yeah, well, maybe that too. Maybe it's a combination of things, but you got to be willing to go over the middle in the NFL. It's not like the CFL.
You really, really do. You have to, and that might be one of the little things that separates it, right there. And obviously with Deontay Spencer, as we've said time and time again, the return's going to play a very big role in him and his ability to make the 53-man roster. But I mean, you got to do the other little things like that as well too as a wide receiver. And you hate to me, I mean, it looked like a classic. Here comes the linebacker, and I'm coming across the middle here, and kind of momentary lapse and take your eyes off the football, and then that ball clanked right off of his hands and right onto the ground. I'm sure the coaches got onto him for that.
And I don't know why he's worried about getting hit. You can't get hit that period. That wasn't the contact session, so you can't make that play in practice. Good luck in a game.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, look, he's still a guy that we're going to be looking to monitor. I mean, one practice, doesn't, you just hate to see it kind of become a trend.
Yeah, I've just seen it a couple of times. That's why I wanted to note. Spencer still had a good camp. He's going to have an opportunity. I think he's going to have some flashy and splashy plays in the preseason, but that's one note to work on.
What about Riley?
Yeah, I haven't seen much. I think he's lined up as the X. He's moved around a little bit, but he's just gotten in the team. Minimal from him.
It's going to be hard for him to get some snaps, right?
Yeah, he's at the back of the pack with Trey Griffey, unfortunately.
All right, tight end. Scotty was down. I'm sure Vance McDonald didn't do too terribly much. Grimble did practice despite having that groin wrapped. What's going on there at that position?
Yeah, pretty quiet. Scotty's first missed practice. He had every practice last year in camp and every practice leading up to that minor injury. I believe it's really minor. I saw when he got hurt, and he still went through at least another couple portions of practice before sitting out the very end. So I'm really not worried about that, and Grimble obviously coming back is a good sign for him. Zach Gentry as a blocker, though, does worry me. I know he's going against Bud Dupree, but Dupree beat him pretty bad on one run session and swooped in and for the tackle. And you talk about the number 3 tight end. The number one thing you have to do in that position is block. And you're going against someone like Christian Scotland-Williamson, who has really improved as a blocker, and obviously his size and his strength and just mass is a benefit there. So you think about all the blockers that'll be on the waiver wire that you can pick up. Those guys are pretty easy to find. So I do worry about Gentry's roster spot if he's not able to block, and he certainly looks raw in that column, and really that's not a surprise.
Well, when you start taking a peek around, look at these other rosters here and some of these tight ends on them. Luke Wilson is one that comes to mind with the Raiders. Because they got our boy. Who's the LSU kid?
Foster Moreau.
Foster Moreau. You would think they're going to keep him, right? I mean, they better not waive him, or else I know a team that probably look to claim him. And that's the Steelers. But I mean, assuming he makes it, assuming you would think Derek Carrier's going to make it. And I forget who's listed as the first team tight end over there. But Luke Wilson could be the odd man out over there, and he's got a little bit of experience. And believe it or not, he went to Rice, and he was at Rice. He was teammates with Vance McDonald at Rice. So there's a little connecting the dots there. And as far as I remember, Luke Wilson's a pretty decent blocker and gives you a little bit something, as a receiver, especially in the red zone there. So, I think when you start looking around at some of these rosters, it's too early probably to go around and start building, a big list. But I mean, I've peeked around a little bit, and look, even a few of the guys that the Steelers had interest in it during the offseason, Leggett and O'Shaughnessy, I think is his name. Those guys aren't really considered locks to make the 53 that on the teams that they are on. So I'm confident that there's going to be somebody for the Steelers if they're interested.
Yeah, you have to remember that you're not only competing with the guys in your own camp, but the entire league and guys that may be available. That's what a pro scout is for. That's when you go back into your pre-draft scouting reports on these guys, and we know the Steelers have a pretty lengthy and clear history of showing interest in guys that they like coming out of the draft. So Gentry's spot, you can consider him the number 3 tight end right now, and that's fine. I won't fight you on it too much, but that spot is far from secure.
And Colbert shared a little bit of information on how all that's going to work. The college scouts are back in town right now, and he had some meetings or whatnot. Before they resume going back out on the college trail again, they're going to be scouting these for they'll have them in different cities at these preseason games, scouting these other potential guys that aren't going to make rosters. So that's how the Steelers have that covered right now. They'll have those guys in each of the games here, split up, of course, across the country. And after the third preseason game, they'll have a good idea who maybe they might be interested in at certain various positions should they become available. And then the scouts will, of course, hit the road real quick back out to the college games once college gets underway.
Yeah, it's a nonstop job for those college scouts, and they even scout training camp themselves. I've seen Mark Gorsuch at practice. I've seen Dan Colbert at practice early in camp the first couple of days before anything happened around the league, before any games started. But, yeah, you got to keep those guys busy, and that's where a guy like Brandon Hunt, the pro scouting coordinator, really has an influence on this team.
All right, other side of football, defensive line.
I think we'll talk about him a little bit later, but I think Isaiah Buggs continues to do well. We'll get to Colbert's comments because I think they kind of echoed a similar sentiment. Tyson Alulu had a good day. That run defense is super solid. I mean, he may have lost some as a pass rusher and probably is really limited in that regard at this point in his career, but just kind of that dependable, trustworthy guy is going to be able to two-gap, work off of blocks, defeat double teams. That's Tyson Alulu. So I've been happy with him. And Dan McCullers just continues to do well. Even showed some finesse. He's going against Patrick Morrison one-on-ones, and almost every rep, poor Morris just gets bull rushed 10 yards back into the backfield. So I think he was sitting anchoring, just saying, I'm not going to let Big Dan bully me. And Big Dan hits him with this little club and little move to the outside and beats him clean right off the line. And I think Tuitt was smiling and kind of laughing, just like, whoa, where did that come from Big Dan McCullers? But, I said it today, and I got a little bit of brushback about
yeah, you did.
McCullers having the best camp of his career and being a near lock to this team. But I promise you, if you stripped away his jersey number and you forgot about the history, and trust me, I've been as critical of Big Dan as anybody, and I know you're probably right there with me.
Right.
You would say that this guy's really taken a step forward. I think Carl Dunbar's been the best thing for him in his NFL career. I'm not saying he's a starting caliber player. He's a great player. There's still issues in game that have to be worked out. There's limitations in his game with the stunts and games that you can run with your run defense that you can't do with McCullers, that you can do with Hargrave. But just from a camp perspective and the improvement he's made the last 2 years have been super impressive. And it's also just who's going to take that spot from him? I mean, there's no one else to really even, I think, consider, especially if we talk about guys that have no tackle value. So McCullers is making this team, like it or not.
People build up biases, and we've been guilty of it in the past. And you don't necessarily like a player, but I mean, you have to continue to scout them, along the way, And look, I mean, Daniel McCullers sticking around all this long really has surprised me, and I know it has you for the most part. But I mean, you're obviously seeing improvements. I mean, look, he hasn't played a lot. In the last, 2 seasons, too terribly much. But, I mean, you probably see more of them in practice. And if you're noticing improvement, well, I mean, what more can you ask for?
Yeah.
We don't make the decisions here, folks.
Sure. But I think, and I don't want to pat ourselves on the back too much here, but I think it shows our ability to be fair to these guys and say,
Absolutely.
Hey, if you're playing well, we'll tell you you're playing well. That's why we wanted to pump the brakes on the Dobbs stuff, because now he's playing well, and now we're telling you he's playing well. Landry Jones was the same thing, had a terrible first 2 camps. We were killing the guy. Dude got better. We said he got better. I mean, that's just how it goes. So we're not always going to get it right. We have our biases, as you say, with things we have to try to fight. I'm always trying to be aware of that, but right now, McCullers has turned it around, and a ton of credit to him.
You have to nearly wipe the slate, especially during training camp. Probably have to wipe the slate, try to wipe it clean in your mind.
Yeah, and again, just with the Dunbar thing, I think that personality is much better because John Mitchell works well for a lot of guys, and Mitchell's a great defensive line coach. He was, just one of the best. But he works well with a guy like Cam Hayward, who was a football guy. His dad was a football player. He kind of had that tough love, drill sergeant element. That can work for a guy like Cam Hayward. But McCullers is a teddy bear, and I think Mitchell's personality doesn't work with that. But Dunbar, who's a little bit softer, still demanding, still expects the same, but just the personality is different. I think that helped bring the best out in a guy like McCullers.
All right, outside linebacker, T.J. Watt obviously back working again in limited capacity. They'll bring him along slowly. Chicolo's sideline right now, so it's O-line Bud Dupree. I'm assuming running with the first team, and then Tuzar Skipper and J.T. Jones, I guess running second string. I guess Sutton Smith mixed in there some as well. How's Sutton Smith doing?
Yeah, it's been kind of quiet. He'll get some free pressure. He'll get some occasional wins. He's had to see a lot of Zach Banner, and I'm sure he didn't have to see 6'9", 340 in the MAC. And so I think just kind of getting used to that. There are times where he can dip the corner on it, but he still can't turn the arc because Banner's going to just seal him upfield. So it's been relatively quiet, and that's why I've talked about Gilbert III making impact plays and how we have to remember him when we're talking about a roster spot. I don't have a whole lot for the outside linebackers. With Dupree, he's obviously missed a couple practices, hasn't always worked in team, even when he's stressed. It's been pretty quiet. I can't say it's been terrible, but nothing that tells me right now, and things are going to change, but nothing that tells me right now we're in store for a vastly different season than what we've had for his entire career.
Well, one of your big defenses on with him is his health.
Yep.
Is he healthy?
I assume so. There's nothing that tells me otherwise, and I hope so. That being healthy and that'll allow him to convert speed to power better and more effectively. That's been his biggest issue throughout his entire NFL career. I assume that he's healthy right now, but I don't see any additional power despite what I assume is good health.
How is Ola doing on that opposite side?
He's fine. Again, when you face Matt Filer in first team, it's a different kind of animal, as I said before. So I think he's still trying to figure him out. But he's had some wins. He's always making at least one or two impact plays a practice, and whether that's doing second team, first team, whether that's O-line, D-line, team drills, getting praised during special team sessions. The guy just continues to pop up positively in most regards. As I said before, still issues going backwards, still issues playing in space on special teams, but everything going forward, everything in those situations when he's facing a tackle is excellent.
All right, inside linebacker. And I think Mike Tomlin recently said that the Friday Night Lights practice was Devin Bush's best so far.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember back. They all start getting mixed together. But I remember, I've been saying that Bush has been getting better, and the last couple practices have been his best practices. I know he did better in the backs on backers drill Friday Night Lights than he did the first day in Pats, where he struggled and was kind of one of the losers of that drill. But yeah, he's been good. I talked about Gilbert III, continue to make impact plays. I don't have a whole lot new with that group, but I like the group. I like the athleticism. I like how they're always involved around the ball. And I wrote today that I thought Tyler Matakevich is having one of the best camp that I've ever seen him have. And that doesn't mean he's going to be anything different than what he is now. He's the number 4 inside linebacker, but I just like to run defense, the block shed ability to get guys on the ground. There's a role for Tyler Matakevich. It's not on defense, but it's on special teams.
Mike Tomlin, I believe, or Kevin Colbert, one of them has said, look, some of these guys are going to make the team because of their special teams ability.
You need 2 or 3 of those guys. You can't complain, as I'm talking just generally about the Steeler fan base, you can't complain about special teams being poor and then cut your best special teams players. That just doesn't make sense.
People get upset when you mention the name Matakevich and McCullers, possibly. Obviously, McCullers not a huge special teams asset. Although with that size, he can get that paw up there and maybe block a field goal or an extra point every now and again. But yeah, look, you're not keeping Matakevich because of his play at linebacker. You're keeping him. If you ever got in a situation where he's having where he would have to go into a game and play a lot of snaps, the next week there'd probably be somebody else in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the way that you've constructed this roster, so many things would have to go wrong to get to that point, and that's the best that you can do for a situation like that.
Right, he's more of an emergency break glass linebacker, but a special teamer first and foremost. And there's no denying he's one of the best on. If not, him and Rosie Nix are probably the 2 top.
Yeah, I'd probably say, I mean, if Vince gets back more on special teams, then he'd be up there. But Chick, yeah, Rosie and Metakevich for sure. I mean, even if hypothetically two of the three inside linebackers went down, you're probably just going to end up running dime with the other healthy inside linebackers. So it would take three injuries to two inside linebackers and a safety, an Allen or a Sutton, to force Metakevich into the lineup. And that's just, I mean, at that point, you can't have the best depth in the world. You can't just make your decisions based off of those crazy worst case scenarios.
All right, cornerbacks.
I thought Justin Lane has gotten better. I did note with him though that I want him to find the ball better at the catch point. I think he does try to look back for the ball too much, does give up some separation, and I think he's gotten away with that in college because of the length that he has and just inaccurate throws at the college level. It's going to be tougher to get away with that in the NFL, but I think he's progressing in the right direction. Brian Allen seemed to have a slightly better practice, at least some more impact plays on the football. Artie Burns continues to do well, unfortunate with that groin injury that they kept him out at the end. And Steven Nelson, everyone worried about Steven Nelson first 2 days. Oh, he's getting toasted by Juju, and why is he struggling so much? So I don't overreact to the first 2 days. He's having some really good practices. He's getting his hands on the football. He did really well in receiver versus DB, had multiple breakups. He's got 2 interceptions in camp right now. Steven Nelson is just fine. That's why I'm worried about what he did at Kansas City the last 4 years, not so much worried about what happened in 2 practices in shells.
All right, safety.
The one name that really stood out to me, just kind of getting because I got the receiver DBs for the first time, really all camp during Sunday's practice, was Drayvon Askew Henry, the rookie from West Virginia. And he's got some cornerback traits to him. I think he's got a bit of a cornerback background too. He's definitely played some slot quarter and a handful of snaps in practice so far throughout camp. And he's just a guy that seems more fluid than, say, a Cameron Kelly, someone that can drive on the football and be combative at the catch point. But Kelly had his own moments too in 7 shots. It was, I think, Rudolph that threw over the middle to Juju back of the end zone, and Kelly just dove in and swiped it away, and Edmonds helped break it up. Edmonds had another good day too. I think he had 2 or 3 breakups in team sessions. So Edmonds is having a really solid camp. Kelly's flashing occasionally. Askew Henry, someone to watch out for on the practice squad.
Okay, and definitely a position too that we've talked several times. The Steelers might be interested in more of a free safety type. We'll see as things progress here. I'll be interested to see some of these, younger defensive backs play quite a bit in these first 2 games, on top of everything else. And you hope Artie in that groin, can get back to work pretty soon. But overall, you think he's had a pretty nice camp. He made your list, didn't he?
No, he didn't, only because every camp of his is a good camp. So, I thought 2 years ago he was the only guy that could even come close to shutting down or containing Antonio Brown. That might have been his best camp. But because all of Artie's camps are good, I didn't want to put him on that list.
Oh, okay, and I'm looking at it now. Your guys, 5 Steelers having the best camp of their career. You're not gonna get too many attaboys on this one. B.J. Finney, Matt Filer, Daniel McCullers, Tyler Matakevich, and Cam Sutton.
Yeah, well, again, to be clear, this is only for veteran players, so not second-year guys. Terrell Edmonds is having his best camp ever, but you would expect it to be better than what happened last year. But I'm just saying, just looking at camp in a vacuum, and I think that's a positive list. Filer is starting right tackle, Sutton, who could have a big role. Finney is an important, backup player. I think those are all names and all positive things that Steeler fans should want to do well. They should want all these players to do well. And Sutton, I think, is really having a good camp. His run defense has improved a lot, and he's really getting guys on the ground and being physical and putting his face in the fan. And that's so important if he's going to be this backup slot corner.
All right, recap the 7 shots in the goal line real quick.
The 7 shots, the defense actually, I think, won today, 4-3, I believe, but offense still leads camp 35-27. The first play was a touchdown to Grimble, boxing out Edmonds. Josh Dobbs threw it. The next one was Edmonds' breakup to McDonald on a corner out to the right side. The third play was to Kelly, incompletion where he batted it away. Then Edmonds knocked it down so Juju couldn't catch it on the juggle. Brian Allen had an incompletion on a breakup for Rodgers on the 4th play. Rudolph came in for the 5th play. Lane had good coverage, a back shoulder throw that went out of bounds. The 6th play was a corner route from Rudolph to Washington, beating P.J. Locke. And the last one was a little stick route right side to Switzer for the touchdown, beating Spillane. For the goal line series, let me pull that up. The first one, ball to 1 for all of these plays. Connor went behind Rosie Nix for a touchdown. The next one, 6 offensive linemen in. Edmonds had another breakup to McDonald. Again, Edmonds was really active around the ball. Samuels got 2 carries, stuffed on the first one. The second one, he bounced off left side behind a pulling Filer. For the score, Dobbs came in for the 5th play. Snell tried to avoid Alulu, and Alulu made the tackle right at the 1-yard line for the 6th play. Snell scored, again following a pulling Filer, and then Trey Edmonds went over the goal line before Marcellus Branch could get there for the 7th and final play. Offense won the goal line session 4-3. The other thing, really quick, I do want to note the kicking situation. Really, kicking was on display for Sunday's practice. Boswell went 7 of 8, only missed from 50, I believe. I'll double check my notes. And then Matthew Wright went 5 for 8 with a couple misses from like 36 yards out, and both from 50 and 52. So the leg was the biggest issue with Matthew Wright, and I think that kind of was shown in Sunday's practice.
And we've said it time and time again, if the kicker's doesn't wind up being Chris Boswell, it probably won't be Matthew Wright.
Right. I mean that. R-I-G-H-T.
Hey, look, good. Good for Boswell, and hopefully they put him in a lot of stressful situations here during the preseason as well too. So Mike Thomas says we're just getting started in that aspect of it there. All right. Anything else stick out to you? You didn't get in any fights or anything, did you?
No, there was one in front of me. I don't want to get into all that stuff, but I came out unscathed.
All right, great. Okay, and they will be back out at St. Vincent College in Latrobe on Tuesday, and you will, of course, be there for that. I guess now we should kind of transition into some other news and notes. The Steelers made a pair of front office hires. Yeah,
they did. I always like to kind of just check out the front office page on the team website, because they never announce these things. Maybe it's in a media guide somewhere, but they always just kind of update it occasionally. That's how we knew about Kareem Kasem leaving the Steelers. But 2 hires, I'm sure they were not made today or yesterday. They were probably made a couple months ago after the draft and just get posted late on the team website. But Aiden Hennessy Nealon is a team operations assistant, while Tosin Kazim is a football analyst. Nealon is a William & Mary grad, economics degree, might be some analytics department. I'm not quite sure exactly what capacity team operations is going to be. And then Kazim was a scouting coordinator with the Titans for the past couple of years, listed as a football analyst, played a little football at Union College. So 2 minor additions to the front office, but I always like to kind of note those and pass them along to the fan base.
Sounds like Bert has a new assistant as well, too.
Oh, yeah. Someone, I think one of our buddies, Jeff or Jim, one of them pointed out to me the other day. Michael Birch, communications manager, that replaces Don Brunelli, who resigned in June. Birch is from Notre Dame, or at least worked at Notre Dame, his last stop.
Yeah, and I think who's their head coach? Kelly, Notre Dame head coach.
Brian Kelly?
Yeah,
right.
Brian Kelly made the announcement the other day that
okay.
they were losing him, and he was moving on to the Steelers. So they were wishing him luck during their press conference the other day as well too. So I saw that online as well. And let's see, what else do we have here? Kevin Colbert. Look, the good thing about Friday Night Lights practice is Sirius is there, and those guys usually get another round of interviews with guys like Roethlisberger and Kevin Colbert and Mike Tomlin and several other people. And I think the thing that really stuck out, or a few things that stuck out the most to me about when Kevin Colbert talked was once again him talking about Deontay Johnson and him needing to get stronger and hoping that he'll be able to contribute. The more and more you hear Kevin Colbert talk about a guy like Deontay Johnson, the more I feel you should temper your expectations at the start of the season with him. Look, obviously they want to get him up and going as fast as possible. I think Ben does too. I think Ben even said during his interview, as far as Deontay Johnson making a media impact, he said he's got a chance of working on hand signals and all like that. But remember, this guy is still essentially a senior right now in college, and just to hear Kevin Colbert talk and rehash this time and time again, it makes it sound like they want him to get stronger, they want him to work on a few things, and that he's going to essentially be brought along slowly.
Yeah, and that all makes sense, and that's kind of what we've talked about, is that I think there will be a role for Deontay Johnson, and I expect him to have a better year than what Washington did last year. I know that's a pretty low bar to set, but he's a guy with a lot of things to work on. There's talent there, there's a lot of natural ability, but now it's going to probably take some seasoning and experience to really be able to unlock that natural ability.
Kevin Colbert was also asked about Isaiah Buggs, one of the team's 6th-rounder draft picks. We just don't hear a lot of people talking about Buggs right now, other than you maybe and me on this podcast. But he was asked about Buggs, and his quick one-sentence answer really kind of summed it up, and I'm sure you'll probably agree. He says, now Buggs is probably about 15 pounds lighter. I don't know exactly what that means. I think Buggs weighed in around 305 or 306 at the combine, and I know the Steelers have him listed as 295. Who knows how much he actually weighs? So I don't know, was he 15 pounds lighter than maybe what he played at Alabama? I don't know. But
I took it as him being 15 pounds lighter than their typical defensive lineman, like 15 pounds lighter than what Hayward might be. That seemed to be what I took from it, at least.
So what would you guess that weight to be?
295.
Okay, 295. Okay, and that's what the Steelers have him listed at.
Yeah, because I'm guessing like Cam's probably about 300, 310. I don't know. That's just how I interpret it. I might be wrong.
All right. He goes on to say, where does he go? Now, Buggs is probably about 15 pounds lighter. He's a little quicker. He's a solid, consistent run defender, but he's got the hand use you want as a pass rusher. So we're thinking he's going to be able to help.
And that's basically what I've seen. That first step, the hand use, the ability to win in a variety of different ways as a pass rusher, I think is all impressive. I said this before. He's already a better pass rusher now than what an L.T. Walton ever was, or Ricardo Matthews ever was for Pittsburgh. So I've been impressed by him. I like his odds of making the 53. Somebody made the comment. It made me laugh in that article on Buggs. You'll have to call him Lightning Bugs now with the rate he's going. I thought that was pretty clever.
Let's see. What else do we have? What else did Kevin Colbert? You see anything else we need to cover?
Well, said Justin Lane, another guy that needed to add some strengths, which I think is pretty obvious watching his college tape and then watching him in camp.
Yeah, and listen, Buggs and who did we just?
Johnson.
Johnson. Look, Buggs is a guy that we don't expect to see the field much of any during his rookie season. At least we hope not. Maybe you can get up some snaps here and there, but I mean, for the most part, if Dan's number 5 and Buggs is number 6, barring injury, Buggs is probably going to be inactive.
Yeah, to start, probably right.
I guess at that point is how quickly can maybe, can Buggs maybe overtake a guy like Tyson Alualu?
And that might be tough to do year one just because I think they trust Alualu so much with everything they do. Because there's a lot of schematics up front with the stunts and the games that they do, both pass and run, that's probably tough on a rookie.
Ben Roethlisberger did talk about the hands of all of his wide receivers, and a guy like Benny Snell got a lot of kudos, and that's really kind of something that I think that you said that you weren't expecting to see that you have seen early on in camp, and we kind of kidded about the other day, Ben throwing these bad balls, when is he throwing some good balls? No, I'm just kidding, but that look, I mean, you expect it to be positive. We don't know the level of hyperbole, as I like to say here. But it matches the eyeball test, I guess, on your side of things, right?
It does. No, I think it's being totally sincere, Ben, when he talks about Snell. I noted that with Snell on the first day of my camp notes. I mean, even just seeing him catch on air in individual sessions. I mean, it's just how clean his catches are, natural hands, adjusting the pull he's throwing footballs, getting upfield. I think he's got a really solid pair of mitts. So again, Snell's shown that well-rounded game that probably surprised some of us and could help him get on the field as a rookie, especially whenever an injury strikes.
And really surprised us more from the fact that Kentucky didn't throw to him out of the backfield.
Yeah, it was never that his hands were bad. It just he didn't get the opportunity to show it. I think even Tom Meade went through a lot of Snell's receptions, and they were just screen pass, occasional check down. You couldn't even get a good feel from that. But Eddie Faulkner went to his pro day, worked him out, said this dude has good hands, and I think Faulkner's report was right on the money.
Kevin Colbert also talked about Deontay Johnson and the return game for the Steelers, and he says Deontay is going to come in and push him, meaning Switzer, because Deontay's a natural return guy. But again, it'll depend on how they can contribute within the offense, and then hopefully they're able to compete and push each other. Eli Rogers is the same way because Eli's done punt returns too, so it's a little deeper group than we've had, so they'll sort it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think Johnson's going to get a look at both. I'm starting to more agree with you on the idea of, well, maybe this is what your idea was. You tell me, but I think Johnson's going to be.
Let me make sure I'm recording here to get this.
All right. Well, I get myself mixed up which one was your stance or not, but I think Johnson's going to be better have a better chance on punts than kicks. Is that how you felt, or were you the opposite? I don't remember.
Mine was kickoffs out of the. He didn't do a lot of punt returns.
Right, because he did that later in his career. I just look at the quickness of his game, and then I worry about some of the bobbles that you said, which is an issue for punts, but it's an issue for both, but also just some of the toughness. Because I think, didn't Colbert make a pass about toughness or strength that he needs to work on a little bit? Did he say that?
Oh, yeah. Well, he said he goes on in that same, talk about Deontay Johnson. He's exceptionally quick, but he's still obviously learning the scheme. His hands are good, but he's got to grow some physically. But you'll see, I think he'll be able to contribute.
Okay, because I remember, I'm trying to find the quote, and I'm not having success right now. Danny Smith, one of the top things he said about a kick returner has to be as tough, because obviously you're running full speed, and the 10 other guys that are running full speed at you. And I'm not saying Johnson's not tough, but with a slighter frame, a lack of strength, and Colbert's comments about that, it just kind of has a feel of someone that's going to initially have a better crack at punt return. I'm sure he will return some kicks, but the skill set initially lends itself to being more in the role for a punt returner than a kick returner.
Interesting, because 79 kickoffs at Toledo for 1,849 yards and 2 touchdowns, 17 punts for 343 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, he was successful on both, right? It was just he didn't do punts until later in his career.
Yeah, they're not going to throw a guy like that out there first couple of weeks to be a punt returner. I mean, either or. I mean, I don't. Would they throw him out there as a kick returner? I mean, they would. They would. Probably not first game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, was that Juju that did it his rookie year?
Yeah.
Juju did his rookie year. It was him and Terrell Watson.
Was it first game?
Yeah.
Was it really?
It was Cleveland. Yeah, they didn't do it. They didn't do it at all in the preseason. That was my whole rant about how much they botched that situation, why the return game sucked until the finale. But anyway,
it's got to get better, whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, again, I've said it before. If they don't keep, are they keeping Switzer? Do you think? I know it's a very loaded question.
I have no reason not to keep him still. How's that?
All right, fair enough. It's tough. Spencer's certainly going to be the one guy that has a chance to really push him. But if they don't keep Switzer, then they're just going to keep going through this Rolodex of kick returners, 20-some-odd years now of different kick returners. And I think it's just hard to have consistency with a unit. If you had a different quarterback 20 straight years, it'd be hard to have consistency as an offense. You would take a different kick returner for 20 straight years. It's hard to have consistency as a kick return game.
With this article about Switz and Ben and I think it was in the PPG about, build the relationship they're building and it's beginning to look, anything can happen, but it's beginning to look more and more like Switzer, it's pretty safe,
You think?
I still wouldn't bet my house on it, but once again, the thing that bothers me the most about Switzer is down the field kind of stuff. Can he be that same guy on a week in, week out basis that he was during those 2 or 3 games later in the season?
Yeah, I think. Obviously Spencer can change things as I keep wanting to preface, but sitting here today, if you needed a backup,
who is your backup slot guy right now?
Eli.
I would agree. I'd much rather have Eli in there.
Yeah, I agree. I said Eli's a better receiver than Switzer. Switzer's a better returner than Rodgers. But they're going to keep 6. It's a question of which 6. And I think I'm going to go to the default of Switzer and Eli as 5 and 6.
And that's where I was on my last 53. Yeah. And until something comes up to make me change that. Deontay Spencer's definitely going to be a guy that we got to watch. But, man, he's got to knock our socks off.
He's got to run one back, pretty much.
Well, probably run one back and maybe 2 others past the 50.
Right, and don't fumble. Remember, Trey Williams ran one back a couple years ago, but then fumbled, and that was that.
Right. So, until we have reason to go against Switzer and Eli, it's hard too.
Yep. That's a fair point.
Especially when I haven't seen a damn practice.
Also a fair point.
I'm waiting.
But you got it right before I did. At least I'm now with you, and I've seen the practice.
Well, we'll see if I'm right, And to answer your question earlier, the stance I take is always the one that ends up being right, just so you know.
Yeah, if it's wrong, it didn't happen.
No, I didn't. Or burn the tape. But no, I'm just kidding there. Okay, wow. What else maybe stuck out that I don't know, Tomlin,
Well,
Colbert.
I had one quick thing with Colbert talking about Matt Filer. I want to give the O-line some love. Colbert talking about how well Filer's done. Colbert says, quote, "So far, Matt's having a really good camp, and I sit back and watch him, and I'm really pleased with how he's improved. I don't know, he came from really football nothing to turn it into a potential starter. Yeah, Bloomsburg kid, claimed off waivers from Houston. And I think what's helped benefit him this year, he's played a little bit of right guard and a couple snaps at left guard, but just knowing that his home is probably going to be at right tackle and getting 90% of snaps at right tackle, I think is huge for him because every point of his career so far has been being just whatever they needed him to be, whether that was a right tackle, a right guard, a left guard, even a center. They dabbled a little bit last year, which I hope never, ever happens. But I think just getting to play in one spot, obviously getting to start 10 games at right tackle last year, just get to hone your craft at one position, develop comfort in one spot, is going to elevate his play even more, and I think you're seeing that this camp.
Should we in any way be disappointed that Okorafor is not pushing him as much, or is this just a veteran guy getting a little bit better?
No, it's nothing to do with Okorafor. I think Okorafor's been fine. It's just been Filer's been that darn good. So I'm not frustrated with Okorafor or disappointed in that at all. I think you just look at the guys, how they're playing, remove the draft pick label to him, and Filer's been the guy. He's playing well, and why rock the boat?
Okay, what else do we have from Eddie Faulkner came out. You don't see coaches get on Twitter or get on social media too terribly much, but I guess in the day and the age that we live in with these coaches getting a little bit younger, I guess that's becoming par for the course. And after this morning, Eddie Faulkner on his social media account said James Conner about to go crazy this year.
Yeah, let's hope that's true. I mean, I guess Faulkner, he's been on Twitter. Being a college coach, though, I'm sure he probably need more of a presence on Twitter than what a longtime NFL coach. I'm sure Darryl Drake's not going to have a Twitter account anytime soon, though I would love to see Darryl Drake with a Twitter account. But, I mean, yeah, Connor's doing well, and he's going to be the guy, and Samuels will have a role, and Snell potentially will have a role. But we saw what Connor did the first 6-8 weeks last year, and he was doing an awesome job, and I expect that to continue in 2019.
200. Well, he had more touches than he had 270 total touches last year, and that was missing 3.5 games. He should at least get 270 touches again, right?
Yeah, we have this discussion, I think, every time we talk about James Conner, and I just forget what I say in the past. He'll be above that if he can play all 16 games.
You don't think he'll hit like the 325 mark, though, right? I mean, that's a little.
I think somewhere around 300 touches, not carries, is probably where he's going to come in at if he can play all 16 games.
Right, and a guy like Samuels. I mean, look, James Conner might not play, or probably won't play as high as a percentage as he did in those first 13 games offensive snaps. He might play a little bit lesser percentage, but I don't think his touches are going to suffer.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the touches may suffer a little bit on a per-game basis.
On a per-game basis, but not for a totality for a season. Obviously, missing 3.5 games plays in pretty huge to that. I agree. I think that they're going to – and again, they may do this pony stuff where they're doing it a little bit. They'll get both – I know you're laughing, but I'm just saying they might get Conner and Samuels both on the field. It's not gonna floor me. Hey, I'd like to see it, I'd like to see it.
There's value because Samuels can be a legit threat as a receiver, and Connor's obviously a big threat in the backfield. So I think it's just a different wrinkle, just to give defenses something different to game plan for, to make yourself more flexible and give yourself more options as an offense. Those aren't bad things. So you're not going to see it 100 times this year, but you see it 30, 40 times. Yeah, I think that's within the realm of possibility.
We'll see it more than last year. That's as far as I'm going to go.
All right, fair enough.
He also
Which is 0, by the way.
Yes, 0. I'm going to win that over. Can I bet on that over anywhere?
Not on my casino.
I'm trying to go through here, see if I miss anything as far as this goes. It doesn't look like Terrell Austin it's becoming more and more evident that it's Terrell Austin's room, right?
That's what it feels like. And I don't want to say that Bradley won't have a role. I think Bradley will help give some individual attention to guys during a drill. He'll pull somebody aside or after a rep, he'll talk to him. But Austin's the guy who has command of the drill. And if it's like that during practice, I imagine it's similar in meetings and things like that. And I know Austin tried to downplay it and talk about, we're both trying to work together and have the same ideas and give the same information out, which I'm sure they are. But it feels like Terrell Austin, if you didn't know anybody, if you took away the labels, you didn't know about Austin, you just said, who's the secondary coach? If you watch 9 practices, you would go, oh, Terrell Austin easily. Bradley's the assistant. That's the way it looks like. And I know that Austin's supposed to be in the booth this year. He's going to be the replay guy. He talked about that in an interview recently. But I have a feeling that even by week 1, but maybe some point during the year, Austin's going to come down from the booth and be on the sidelines and really help with the secondary even more so.
Notated. Okay, the other kind of big news, if you will, Monday morning was Jeremy Fowler reporting that Steelers and cornerback Joe Haden are making progress on a 2-year contract extension per a source. Both sides have exchanged proposals. The 2-time Pro Bowler is due $10 million in the last year of his deal, and the team could rework that year and extend him through 2021. I probably could have put the same thing out on Twitter this morning, and nobody would have even noticed it.
Yeah, I expect this deal to get done. I agree with you.
This sounds like manufactured news.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just you knew that they were talking. You knew a deal was going to get done. So logically, at some point in this process, they were going to get close on a talk, and that's how that goes. I agree it's going to get done. I agree with you. It's probably not going to happen until after the 3rd preseason game, and I think it's going to come in for, what did Joel Corey say, about $12 million per year?
Yeah, and I've been around new money average of around $12 or $13 million all along here. And I talked to Joel Corey, former NFL agent, again today. And this was after I even wrote my article. I just wanted to bounce a few things off of him and see if I was still on the right course. And he says, look, $12 million, $12 to $13 million new money average sounds about right. And as far as, here's the thing. Joe Haden's due $10 million already this year. In order to get him to sign an extension, he's going to have to pocket probably $13 to $14 million in 2019. So that's going to come in a combination base salary and signing bonus. All right. So, if that number's $13 million that he earns in 2019, maybe you give him a $3 million base salary and a $10 million, better yet, the way I think, I don't see the Steelers wanting to give Joe, anything more than maybe a $10 million signing bonus to help lessen the load on the back end kind of thing. Especially if this does wind up only being a 2-year extension, which I've been calling for really right from the start here. So, I mean, if it is just a 2-year extension with him, I can't see the signing bonus being more than $10 million. In fact, my example this morning that I wrote up was a $9 million signing bonus, a $4 million base salary. That gives him $13 million in 2019. And the result of that, if you play with the rest of the numbers, the way the cash flow should probably be, his new cap charge would be $3 million less than what it's already scheduled to be. That just feels right, and as does the cash flow that I have the rest of the way. In essence, I expect Joe to get on top. I expect the new deal, a 2-year extension, basically with all 3 years added up, for him to technically earn $34 to $36 million over the course of the 3 years. Okay, so you look at he's scheduled to earn $10 million now. What's 34 minus 10? That's $24 million in new money. That's where you get the $12 million new money average there. I'm going to be close on this. I'm pointing to the fence right now.
Right.
I'm going to be almost right on the money. The only thing is it going to be a new money average of $12 million? 13 million or right there in between? And his first year take, is it going to be 13 or 14 million? It should be right around. And like I said, I bounced this off Joel Corey, and he said, yeah, you're right on track here.
All right, yeah, and that's all fair. For people to think it's an overpay, it's not. It's the cost of doing business based on what he's previously made. He's looking to be a number 1 corner and what the market is. So, I mean, that's right in line with where it should be and needs to be.
Right. I mean, people are saying, oh, 13 million, 12 million, that's paying too much. Look at, 12 million would just get him into the top 15 highest paid corners in the league,
Yep. So, I would have no problem with that.
Now, if they do wind up clearing that $3 million, and I don't see him clearing out any more than $3 million, to be honest with you, as a result of a deal with him. They could, but that's kind of what I'm speculating right now. Then we go back to the whole Javon Hargrave thing. And someone asked me today, where am I on this? I'm probably leaning more to the 60-40 getting it done now. I think I was 50-50 for a little bit. And here's why. Kevin Colbert always says you do what you need to do to keep your best players. You know? And, I mean, this guy, by your reports and by his play last season, this guy, how do you let a good player walk away?
By not giving the money he wants. I know they want to get it done, but it's gonna be expensive. And can they justify it? Can they pony up for it? I hope they do, but I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, well, there is a line somewhere, where they're not going to be willing to cross. We'll see.
If Hargrave asks for, I'm just throwing out numbers, total speculation, for $11 million per year, is that an unreasonable request from his camp?
I'll have to
just saying the idea of, listen, guys, we're a year out from the market. This is what 4.3D tackles make. This is what tackles that can put up 7 to 8 sacks like Hargrave has done get. I know the system, I know the snap count, but we're not taking less money just because you're going to use us less. We're going to get what we think is deserved based off of his play and what he could make had he been drafted to a different system or a different scheme. And so we want $11 million per year.
Now, defensive linemen overall, if you want to just look at defensive linemen overall, there's of course Aaron Donald at 22.5 and DeMarcus Lawrence at 21, and some of these are 4.3 defensive ends, of course, all like that too. If you were to filter it down by and the reason you threw out 4.3 defensive tackles because that's kind of the market that Javon Hargrave would be looking at potentially if he were to hit free agency. So no, Alex hasn't forgot what kind of defense the Steelers run. It's just that probably 4-3 teams would be taking a hard look at making Javon Hargrave an every down defensive tackle to play one gap defensive tackle.
Yeah, view him not as a nose tackle, but an interior defensive lineman. And those guys get paid. Those guys that can play that spot and get after the quarterback, they get paid tons of money.
All right, now $11 million. Looking at 4.3 defensive tackles according over to cap would put him right in the top 10, I think.
Is that unreasonable? That sounds reasonable to me.
It sounds reasonable. You value him more than Dontari Poe, right? Dontari Poe's $9.3 million.
Yeah, I value him a lot more.
Malik Jackson with the Eagles, $10 million. Star Lutulele, $10 million. Sheldon Richardson with the Browns, probably a little bit overpaid. I don't know, 12.3. Linval Joseph at 12.5. Marcel Darius at 14.
Yeah,
if you made him top 10 and put him at 10 or 11 million, that.
And even if he's not quite 10 or 11, he might get there over the course of his contract. And everyone, how the market goes. You're always trying to jump guys. It's not a perfect one-to-one. This is where you rank. This is what you get kind of deal. So, yeah, I think Hargrave hypothetically could ask for $11 million. Then the question is, we know that's not unreasonable. So now do the Steelers pay that? And that's a tough one. I might. I'm not saying I wouldn't, but I'm just saying from the team standpoint and how they pay Hayward and Tuitt, that's a different story.
Now, obviously, Cameron Hayward, Stephon Tuitt leads the charge right now with a $12 million new money average. Cameron Hayward, who's going to get a mega deal this time next year, probably before this time next year, almost $10.5 million. So, he'd be right there. 10 million. Boy, you'd have a lot of money tied up in that defensive line.
Yeah, so the question there is, again, using this hypothetical of, okay, we're giving Tuitt 12. Do we give Hargrave 11, who's playing 30% less of the time than Tuitt is? And do we give Hargrave 11, knowing that we got to pay Hayward probably, 15, 16 on his next contract? Is that, if you had to throw out a number, what would that number be for Hayward on a new deal?
With Hayward, what did the guy in? Just looking at defensive ends here. It's going to be $15 million for Hayward.
So think. Can you invest all that into your defensive line? When teams create their salary cap, they break it down by position. This is how much we can invest in this position and this position. You're probably exceeding that if you're throwing Hargrave's $11 million with Hayward, and let's just call it 15. That's 15, 11, and 12. Just rough numbers. That's what, 38? Is my math right on that?
With what they got now? Well, you got...
no, well, not now, but in this hypothetical of 15, 11, and 12.
26 and 12, 38 million.
Yeah. Can you invest 38 per year on the average in your defensive line? I mean, you
can.
You can. Oh, yeah, of course you. I mean, of course you can. I can invest 38 million in kickers if I want to, but is that going to work with the rest of the roster with all the other guys I got to pay? I'm just saying it's a difficult question. I want Hargrave back. I will do everything I can to get Hargrave back, but those are the questions the Steelers are going to have to answer.
And I think the Steelers will do everything they can as well too. And I just keep going back to what Colbert says. You sign your good players.
Yeah, I mean they have a good history of that. So I'm hopeful, but I'm not too terribly optimistic about it. That's just how I view it.
Well, I think I rode 50-50 for a while. Like I said, I'm 60-40 now. Where are you? Still 50-50 or what?
You're 60-40 that it will get 60%.
Yeah,
it will get done.
60%. I'm bumping ahead a little bit.
I'll reverse it. I'll say I'm 40%. Yeah, 60% no.
All right.
But we'll see. We'll see. We'll get our answer less than a month.
Yeah, less than a month. 4 more weeks. And look, I would expect, like I said, with Haden, I mean, they could technically do these guys any time, but I mean, what's the rush right now? I mean, they just redid Tuitt's contract. They have almost $5 million. I mean, they're not hurting for cap space right now, so you can just ride this out for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Right
and
now.
As you said, I think it's a good point. Just get everyone healthy through it all, and then attack it before the season begins.
Right.
All right, Dave, that was everything I had from Colbert's comments and everything at camp. If there's anything else you'd like to add, feel free. Otherwise, we can jump to some reader emails.
All right, let's jump to reader emails from Bryce. Alex, who would you say right now is the leader in the clubhouse for the punt return and kickoff return jobs?
Well, until we get into a stadium, you kind of have to keep it status quo. I'll say Switzer for both. Spencer has an opportunity there, absolutely. Deontay Johnson's going to get some work at it. Eli Rogers is punt return capable, although I don't know how much we're going to see him in the preseason because you want to look at the other guys. But until someone changes my mind based on what they do inside a stadium, special teams is so hard to evaluate during practice. It's the hardest area to evaluate. It's still Switzer for me.
All right, number 2, have you seen any notable differences in what the outside linebackers are doing now that Butler is coaching that group versus what Joey Porter was doing with the group?
No, it's pretty much the same. I mean, I haven't looked at it under the microscope, but Butler's coached this group before. I'm sure Butler and Porter were pretty close. I don't think Porter's going to say anything vastly different than what Butler was going to tell those guys. I mean, heck, Butler coached Joey Porter, so it all worked together.
Jake Marion has sent us a list of drafted safeties that I'm supposed to forward to you. Really, there's just a list there, not okay. Really asking us to discuss or anything.
We'll look at the position one, but they don't make They don't make trades on August 5th. I'm going to give it some time to wait on a list.
Right. This one, let's see, from Jay, attended the August 2nd Steelers Fest, hoping to chat with Alex about Artie Burns and Bud Dupree. Did not see Alex there. Nonetheless, have you or Alex ever witnessed players like Artie who are great in practice, which does not translate to the field, and vice versa, where they are terrible at practice and excel on the field, in particular with the cornerback? Well, do keep in mind, Jay, that we don't attend in-season practices. Only Alex attends training camp practice. But, I mean, this is obviously a question for Alex.
Sure. I'm sorry I missed you at camp. That was for the Friday Night Lights practice? Is that what
the August 2nd Steelers Fest. What was that? I guess that was the Friday Night Lights.
Okay, my phone's dying and my charger's broken, so I don't want to look at my calendar. Okay, yeah, that's a crazy day. To the question about who plays well in practice and doesn't do well in games. I mean, Artie's probably the best case example. I can't think of a better example than Artie Burns. Grimble to some extent would have good practices, and then games he just never really carried over with a consistency. The opposite of that, I'm going to go with Colbert on what Colbert said on this one with Josh Dobbs, is that his practices always are a little inconsistent. The accuracy isn't great, and then in games he just kind of seems, obviously the regular season he struggled versus Oakland, but in preseason action he seems to have much better preseason games than he does in training camp practices.
And I'm glad you hit on that, because we didn't hit on that during the other portion about one thing that Colbert said, and he did say that Dobbs tends to play better in games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the mobility is a factor. That's the concern with Rudolph is that lack of mobility, playing behind a second string inexperienced line. He got sacked 7 times last year. Dobbs didn't get sacked once. that stuff that's going to hurt you in games. So while, Rudolph may still have the quote-unquote edge, though I don't care about those things here on August 5th, when you get in the stadium, that's going to be a huge advantage for Dobbs, is that he's more accurate and he's more accurate on the run, and he's more mobile and can extend plays and make plays with his legs.
Jay also adds, wanted to chat about Bud, as I believe he is a solid player. The Steelers use him successfully when he drops into coverage, so I overlook his pass rushing mediocrity.
Bud's, fine. You know what you have in Bud at this point. They only dropped him into coverage, I think, 18% last year, 16%, and I don't know how many plays in coverage he really made. He's not a total liability. He can get zone drops and hook curl stuff, but he had the pick 6, but that was off of pressure from McCullers. They asked him to go forward last year, and I'm drafting outside linebackers to go forward, not backward, and he's got to make more plays there.
All right, the new twist, this is from John Caldarelli. This new twist offense works with the 11 best players on offense, which could field Samuels, Connor, and Snell to create matchup trickery. I guess this goes back, let's see. Appreciate it. Great job. Training camp. Dave's asked the right questions and Alex answers with insight and detail. Both of you make camp exciting and greatly add my interest in watching the preseason games. My camp question with the need for the offense, diversity, and production. From the loss of Antonio and Le'Veon, could we see new offense formation? I guess he's meaning personnel grouping. Samuels as a wide receiver or tight end with dual Connor and Snell backfield. This would add new power option, receiving diversity early this season. Would love to see the new twist option formation against. Here's the thing, John, about Jalen Samuels. He's not a tight end. I know a lot of people listed. I know coming out he was listed as a tight end, and some fantasy sites had him listed as tight end. He's not a true tight end. You can line him up as an H-back. You can line him up, sort of as maybe a detached tight end, if you will. But he's not a true tight end in the sense that, look, if he's in the game, he's going out. You're not going to use him to block a defensive end or anything like that. So as far as your question, maybe or scenario about getting Connor, Snell, and Samuels in the same game at the same time, I don't see that happen. I guess kind of what you're maybe more alluding to here on top of it, we talk about this off and on, is how much we're going to see Samuels and Connor on the field at the same time. Yeah, that's a possibility, but even if you do, how much are you going to see both those guys by the time that ball snapped in the backfield together?
Yeah, when they run pony, at least if camp's any indication, it's going to be with Samuel split out and Connor in the backfield. I really wouldn't see them in the backfield together because who's going to be your lead blocker on a run play? It's just not going to be effective. But to the broader point of will you see different personnel groupings and formations, not just personnel groupings? Sure, I hope so. You got to be creative in finding ways to get Juju the ball, get other guys open. You might have to scheme it a little bit harder this year to get guys open and make it a little bit easier on Ben. So I said this before. Fichtner's challenge is going to be more creative this year and help get those guys open and make this offense more effective to combat. So you're not just replacing AB with talent, with guys like Moncrief and Deontay Johnson and players like that, but you have to combat it with scheme as well. Fichtner, it's pretty easy to have a good offense when you have Ben, AB, and Juju. It's a little bit tougher when you remove AB from that equation. So it's to replace AB, it's going to have to come from not only the players stepping up, but the coaches stepping up too.
I got another question about AB and the cap from John Weissire, I think is his name. On Friday's podcast, there's a question from a listener regarding the impact losing AB has on the 2020 cap space. Based upon my interpretation of the question, there is a possible misperception from many that AB is consuming $20 million of Steelers cap space in 2019, even though his is not. He's not on the team. Thus, in 2020, this extra $20 million will come, quote unquote, come back and provide the Steelers with newfound cap dollars to spend on incremental or existing talent. The cap is admittedly confusing to all of us, so you may want to clarify for the user. Here's the thing. You don't have what would have been his salary to contend with, okay, next year. But on top of it, you're already planning around not having to account for that salary now. So some of the decisions that you're making now with some of these extensions are built around the aspect that you don't have to worry about paying AB whatever his base, and whatever his cap charge was scheduled to be there. Look, there's still a dead money charge this year with AB of what is it, 20 something? I don't have my spreadsheet in front of me here. 20 something $million there. So you're essentially paying a player for not being there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to pull this up real quick for you here on this. This is a constantly revolving thing here. You can't look at it as well, he's off the books, and now now you have that money because they're already starting to work around that money. Ben's deal. Who knows how probably wasn't changed all that different or whether they were going to do it anyway. Antonio Brown counts $21.12 million in dead money this year. All right.
Wow.
Now, what was I forget what he was scheduled to make and what his cap charge, was. And I mean, I can't remember if there's a little bit of savings there anyway, as a result of that from what it was scheduled to be. But, you can't look at the cap as, well, he's not there. Now you have that extra money to spend, because that process is already starting now for them accounting for that, not having to pay. Does it make sense? I know it's kind of confusing. Does that make sense, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm getting it. Yeah, they're already making decisions now based on AB coming off the books next year. So it's not like you're going to have that money in totality open next year.
And the thing about the cap anyway is the cap goes up every year, increases, and on top of that, there's always massaging mechanism. Look what the Patriots just did with Brady. There are obvious cap massaging techniques, and the Steelers going to have to restructure another contract or two next year, probably.
Yep.
Probably. Don't look at it as, well, he's not there, well, you can spend this. It doesn't. I'm sure the Steelers and Omar Khan would tell you it doesn't quite work that way. I mean, I understand the theory in people's heads the way it does, but really the biggest thing maybe to look at is the aspect from the cash standpoint. Not having to pay that kind of cash to a guy like Antonio Brown. But, I mean, there's still an 89% rule anyway over a 4-year period that a team has to spend at least 89% of what the cap dollars were over that 4-year period to be in compliance with the CBA.
Yeah, that all makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, don't look at it as he's not here, you have this, it's the same thing with Le'Veon Bell last year, and look, they got credited that money back last year during the season, with him. And then obviously, what was left over, they were able to roll over and that kind of thing on top of it there. I'm trying to see what else I might have here from some readers here. I don't know. We've probably gone long enough here, haven't we?
Yeah, we're probably at hour 10. But we can probably stop it there. We can answer some more maybe tomorrow. Or something. I mean, for tomorrow's for the special edition of the podcast, if any questions come in, we can whatever you want to do.
All right, got a lot of work to do, and I know you've got some work to do before the morning as well too. So why don't we kind of cut it there? Alex and I will be back together Tuesday night after practice for a special edition podcast. We'll be together again after Wednesday's practice. I think the team's off or closed. The practice is closed to the public on Thursday. They, of course, have a Alex and I will be back Friday morning after that for a pregame podcast, if you will. The game is on Friday. I think they're off on Saturday. Who knows? Maybe me and you will get together and have a post-game podcast Saturday night. We'll see. It's a little bit too far off at this point. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow Alex Kozora on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. You can follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do, and a lot of people are taking advantage of this right now, we certainly do appreciate it. If you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit that donate button, upper right navigational bar. If everybody listening to this podcast gave $25 on an annual type basis and made this time of year the time when they did it, hey, we'd probably be able to get even more content. Maybe even add another podcast at some point. Who knows? But we appreciate all the donations that we've got. We've got quite a few of them recently as well, too. So until Tuesday night, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.